Hi there, Mr. Holcomb here with another episode of The Math Behind the Modules. This is lesson 4, summarizing deviations from the mean. Deviations, to deviate. Okay, exercises 1 through 4. A consumer's organization is planning a study of the various brands of batteries that are available. As part of its planning, it measures lifetime. For example, how long a battery can be used before it must be replaced. For each of 6 batteries of brand A and 8 batteries of brand B, dot plots showing the battery lives for each brand are shown below. So there's 6 batteries on A and 8 on B. Okay. 1. Does one brand of battery tend to last longer, or are they roughly the same? What calculations could you do in order to compare the battery lives of the 2 brands? Okay, so looking at these two, it should be clear from the dot plots that the 2 brands are roughly the same in terms of expected battery life. One way of making this comparison would be to calculate the means for the 2 brands. The means are 101 hours for brand A and 100.5 hours for brand B. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to calculate that one more time with the calculator. So let's do brand A first. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to Stat. And I'm going to create a list that's under Edit. So I'm going to hit Enter. And I'm going to enter the values. This is 83, this is 94, and that's 96. So 83, Enter. 94, enter. 96, enter. This one is 106, 113, and 14. So 106, 113, 114. And that is it. There are 6 items. In list 2, I will put brand B. And that is 73. This is 76. It jumps up to 92 and 94. And then it jumps to 110. This is 117, 118. Okay, and 124 it looks like. Okay, so I have 2 lists. L1 is brand A, and I can rename that if that's confusing to you. I can go up here and change its name, but I'm not going to bother doing that at this moment. So let's just leave it L1 and L2. So this is brand A and this is brand B, alphabetical order, numerical order. Okay, so now if I go to my home screen by hitting second quit mode, and then I can hit statistics, arrow over to calculate. We're dealing with one variable, hit enter, and I'm coming from list L1, so I'm just going to calculate, and the mean was 101. 101. Go back to my calculator. Now I'm going to hit stat, calculate, one variable statistics, but now I'm going to change this to L2, and that would be the blue button, and see the L2 right here by the 2? I want to change that to L2, hit enter, and hit calculate, and I got 100.5, so that is right here. So there's very little difference between the two. 1/2 hour in the mean. Number 2. Do the battery lives tend to differ more from battery for brand A or brand B? Well, when they talk about differ more, they're talking about the variability. They're talking about the ranges. So brand A goes from 83 minimum to a maximum of 114, and brand B goes from 73 all the way up to 124. So they differ more for brand B. And in answering in a complete sentence, I'd say the dot plot shows that the variability in battery life is greater for brand B than it is for brand A. Number 3, would you prefer a battery brand that has battery lives that do not vary much from battery to battery? Why or why not? Okay, so we prefer a brand with small variability in lifespan because these batteries will be more consistent and more predictable. If you are camping, for instance, and you have a battery-powered lantern, and you aren't sure if that's going to last 3 hours or 5 hours, you'd want a more consistent battery life. So, sometimes it lasts 5 hours, but sometimes it only lasts 3. So you're left in the dark if the batteries aren't lasting as long as you want them to. Okay, next page. The table below shows the lives in hours of brand A batteries. So that's what I had in my list. It should be the same. So if I go to Stat, Edit, and let's see, 83, 94, 96, 106, 113, and 114. So the battery life in hours matches what I entered in the calculator. I was just checking. So it says the table below shows the lives. 4, calculate the deviations from the mean for the remaining values and write your answers in the appropriate place in the table. So what they're saying here is they want us to do x minus x bar. So 83 minus, now this is brand A, and if I go back I have to be very careful. Brand A, the means are 101 hours for brand A, so brand A was 101. So I'm going to take 83 minus 101, and that's going to be negative 18. So I'm just showing my work, and if you write this every single time, you'll remember it. X being the value and minus the average of those values. So now it's 94 minus 101, and that would be negative 7. And then I do x minus x bar, or the mean, and that would be 96 minus 101, and that would be negative 5. And x minus x bar is 106. Minus 101, and that's a 5. And then x minus x bar again is 113 minus 101, which is 12. And let me put pluses here to show that it's on the positive side. And then x minus the mean is 114 minus 101, which is 13. So that'd be a positive 13. So there's number 4. The table below shows the battery lives and deviations from the mean for brand B. So they did that for us. Okay, so now I brought the calculator back up. I want to show you how to do this in the calculator. Okay, it's important that you know the formula, but it's also important to know how to use a calculator, because when you take the SAT, the PSAT, the ASVAB, all these tests that you take, these standardized tests that you take to get into college or whatever, are timed. So are you going to take the time to do all this? Or if you are really quick on your calculator, you're going to save time. And so now I'm going to show you how to do this in your calculator. So if you are in Stat and you've entered data, Stat Edit, and L1 was my brand A battery. Now if I go over to L3 and arrow up to the name of L3, see how it says L3 equals? Well, I can take the column L1, so I want to take the value from L1, that was my X, my 83, my 94, my 96. I want to take L1, and what did we do? We subtracted the mean, which was 101. So this L3 column is going to be this column minus 101. And when I hit enter, boom, negative 18, negative 7, negative 5, 5, 12, 13. Pretty cool, huh? Okay, so that I can do the same for L4. So if I go over to L4, arrow up to it, well, now I want to take the values from L2, so that's second L2, 2, minus, And the mean was, I believe, I want to make sure, but it was 101.5 or something, 100.5. So now I go back to my calculator and subtract 100.5 and hit enter. And look at the values. Negative 27.5, negative 24.5, negative 8.5, negative 6.5, 9.5, 16.5, 17.5, and then arrow down one, 23.5. Booyah! Okay. So anyway, there we go. Exercises 5 through 10. The lives of 5 batteries of a third brand, brand C, were determined. The dot plot below shows the lives of the brand A and brand B, brand C batteries. So now we're comparing A to C. Okay, so it says, which brand has the greater mean battery life? So I'm going to calculate the mean again. I've already done brand A. Nothing has changed. Brand A is up here. The average was 101, so I will write that here. I already knew that brand A's mean was 101. And now I want to calculate the mean for brand C. So I'll go into my calculator and calculate brand C. So I think we're done with these values up here. So whenever you want to get rid of L3, do not hit delete. That will delete the column and it will go from L2 to L4. It doesn't delete the column, it just hides it. If you're familiar with Excel spreadsheets, it hides this column. We don't want to hide the column, we want to clear it. So I don't want anything, and you'll think nothing happened, but when you arrow down, that's when it does the clearing. So I'll arrow up, arrow over to L4, hit clear, arrow down, and they're blank again. So L3 will now be my brand C battery, and this looks like 98. Enter. This is 106. Enter. And this is 112. This dot is 115. And the last dot is 119. So I've entered those 5 batteries. Now I'm going to go to my home screen and I'm going to hit stat, arrow over to calculate, one variable statistics, and now I want to take it from L3. So I arrow down and hit calculate, and the average or the mean was 110. Okay, which brand has the greater mean battery life? Brand C. You should be able to answer this question without doing any calculations. Okay, the reason that says that is because the smallest value is here and they're all greater over here. So I know that the average of these should be somewhere in the middle of this group from here to here, and the middle is right around here, and sure enough it was 110. Okay. Which brand shows greater variability? Well, brand C. The variability for brand C is 119, I'm doing the range, minus 98. And that is a difference of 21. Brand A goes from 113, and I can just go up here, 114 to 83. So 114 minus 83. This is C, this is A. And 4 minus 3 is 1, and 31. So, which shows a greater variability? Brand A. Number 7. Which brand would you expect to have the greater deviations from the mean? Ignoring the signs of the deviations. Which brand would you expect to have the greater deviations from the mean? Okay, so if I get my calculator out now, and I want to do deviations from the mean, I go back into my lists, and now I want to find out what L3's deviations are, so I arrow over to L4, arrow up, and it says L4 equals, I want it to be L3 minus the mean, which was 110. And the deviations were negative 12, negative 4, 2, 5, and 9. Okay, so if I wrote those here, negative 12, negative 4, 2, 5, 9. Change to red, please. -12, -4, -2, 5, 9. Okay, this was a difference of 5. Here's 1. So this one was +5 of this. This was -1. This was -3, and this was 7 less, and this was 4 less. Okay, so you can see by these values that the deviation from the mean was greater for brand A. So brand A would have a greater deviation from the mean. The table below shows the lives for the brand C batteries. What are the deviations from the mean? Well, we've already done that. And it's -12, -4, 2, 5, 9. Okay, that is not right. These values don't match these values, so let me take a look at this. The table below shows the lives for the brand C batteries. Let me go back. Here's brand C. 98 all the way up to 119. What do I have in my calculator? 98 up to 119. But then when I go to this page here, it says life in hours 115, 119, 112, 98, 106. Oh, I see, they're not in order. Okay, I see. So 98 was -12. -12 goes here. All right, they just didn't put them in order for some odd reason. 115 is 5. 119 was 9. 112 was 2, and 106 is -4. Okay? 2 and -4. All right, that's better. I had the right numbers, I just didn't put them in the order they had in their table. So it says calculate the mean battery life for brand C. So I've already got brand C set up in my calculator under L3. So I go to my home screen and I hit Stat, Calculate, One Variable Statistics, L3, enter, 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 and the mean is 110. Okay. Number 9, write the deviations from the mean in the empty cells on the table for brand C. Okay, so that we just did that. And that came from doing the stat calculate, and where L4 equals this column here minus, it doesn't let me go down there. Okay, that's fine. L4 minus, or L3 minus 110. That's what I was trying to get to right here. Once you enter it, it tells you a set of numbers being these here. Okay, so it doesn't show the formula once you're done. All right, so write the deviations from the mean in the empty cells for brand B, brand C, so that's right there. Number 10, ignoring the signs, are the deviations from the mean generally larger for brand A or brand C? Does your answer agree with your answer to exercise 7? Okay, so the deviations from the mean are generally larger for brand A, and yes, my answer would agree with answers to exercise 7, which is right here. Okay, so first what we just did was looked at this and said, are they, just by looking at the dot plots? Then we calculated the deviations from the means, and we determined that that is true. Exercises 11 through 15. The lives of 100 batteries of brand D and 100 batteries of brand E were determined. The results are summarized in histograms below. So here are the two histograms. 11. Estimate the mean battery life for brand D. Do not do any calculations. So I go back, I look at this chart. What do you think the average is? Okay, so what I would do is I'd look at this data. I would see that it's mound-shaped. It's pretty much symmetrical. So I would probably think that the mean was smack dab in the middle, halfway between 105 and 115. So I would say approximately 110 hours. Estimate the mean for battery life brand D. So about 110 hours. 12 says estimate the mean battery life for brand E. Do not do any calculations. So I go back, I look at brand E, somewhat symmetrical, mound shaped, middle looks like it's about here, and that would be halfway between 125 and 135, so I'd say about 130 hours. Okay, number 13. Which brand, D and E, shows the greater variability in battery life? Do you think the two brands are roughly the same in this regard? So does one have greater variability than the other, or are they roughly the same? So we're going from 145 to 85, which is 60. And we're going from 165 to 105, which is 60. So I would say roughly the same. Okay. 14. Estimate the largest deviation from the mean for brand D. Okay. So we look at brand D. Okay, so I wrote the mean equals 110. Approximately, I should say. It's approximately 110. Okay, so if we're going to deviate from the mean, that means, how far over did we go to get to the next area? So our one deviation would be this bar here, or going to the left between here and here. These would be our deviations. Somewhere between, so from 110 to 115 is 5, and 110 to 125 is 15. So any answer within this range here would be a correct answer. So that's what I'll put. Okay, anything between 5 and 15 hours. Okay, so I just found a typical deviation. So I just answered out of order. Okay, I didn't read that correctly, or I jumped down. That is a typical deviation, anything between 5 and 15 hours. It says estimate the largest deviation from the mean for brand D. So when they talk about the largest deviation, let me do that in green. That means the deviation from the mean, largest, is from here to here. So that would be 145 minus 110 roughly, or 35. Okay, but so I would say, here I would say roughly 35 hours. Okay, that's the largest deviation. A typical deviation would be 5 to 15 hours. Okay? All right, that is the end of lesson 4. Review the lesson summary and go to your problem set.